Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have a lot of new makeup to play with today. I recently, very recently in the last couple of days, just got in the BYREDO eyeshadow palette, the Flora Kalahari palette, and the Dior Backstage Concealer, both of which I picked up myself. And then I have a couple other things in PR that I'm really excited to play with. So let's just get right into it. I'm completely barefaced, so we're gonna do a full face of new makeup. I'm feeling a little bit puffy today, so I'm actually gonna start with my Current Body roller. This is a metal roller that I pop in the freezer, and it just feels so nice and soothing and calming. It's the afternoon. I did my skincare this morning, so I don't really have anything on my skin, but I definitely feel some puffiness around my eyes. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of this. So for foundation, I have the Fit Glow Beauty foundation. This is actually a formula I have tried once, but they sent me the wrong shade originally, and so they sent over what I think is the correct shade. This is the shade F3.7. So here's the description of the foundation. Herbal and organic plant-infused photo filtering foundation delivers natural antioxidants to care for skin all day while creating a healthy-looking, flawless finish. They also sent over their foundation brush, which I have used once with the previous shade, and I love it so much. It's incredibly soft, it's weighty, it's a synthetic brush, but it doesn't feel like it. It almost feels like it has the softness of a natural bristle brush, and it's cut at an angle. And then the foundation comes in this glass bottle, frosted glass bottle, and it has a twist off applicator with a doe foot. And so this is the shade medium, or F3.7. I think it's described as a medium warm with golden undertones on their website. I have found that this has pretty solid medium coverage to buildable, I think, and it's very creamy and it blends out really nicely. It does have that filtered quality that kind of smooths over pores. I'm just applying directly to cheeks, and I'm gonna start with a small amount first, just so we can work that in and then build up coverage where we want it. So I think you can see the coverage. It is, because I'm doing a sheer layer, it's about a light medium, but if you were to apply more than this, it can definitely go up to a solid medium. It definitely is covering redness. It's blending out really nicely, no pilling, no patchiness or anything like that. And I really like this brush with this formula. I find that because the formula is so creamy, the softness of the brush plus the creaminess of the formula just makes for a really, really pleasant blend, and it just feels really nice on the skin. Generally, I am someone who likes a runnier foundation. I just find that they are a little bit more blendable, but even though this one is a little bit of a thicker formula, because it's so creamy, it blends out really evenly. Sometimes really heavy foundations, you apply them and they kind of stick, you can see where you applied them. This one's not like that. It gives you a really nice, even blend. So I'm just adding a bit of coverage around my jawline where I have a bit of redness. And so with this brush, I find that if you kind of paint it on, you get a thinner application, but if you want to build coverage, you can just kind of stamp and stipple, and the brush works really well both ways to create higher coverage if you want through the stippling action, or you can paint it on like I was doing earlier. I'm just building coverage around the nose. The brush is also really flexible, so it kind of gets around the corners of the nose and just little crevices around the face really well. So this is one layer plus some spot coverage of the foundation. I love the way it feels on the skin. It's really nourishing, but it's not greasy and it's not heavy, even though it's a slightly thicker texture. I am really impressed by the filtering quality and it just looks so skin-like. I actually think this foundation will work for a lot of different skin types, except perhaps the most oily. It does have a little bit of body that I think if you're super oily, it just may be too much for you. But everyone else, from dry skin to combo skin, even if you're oily in the T-zone like me, I think this would be a great option. And there's something, you know, I know the doe foot applicator is not for everybody, but there is something about how easy it is to use. You can even use it as your concealer that I do think will appeal to a lot of people. I do think F3.7 is the best match for me in the range. It's described as a golden warm, and I'm a little bit more of a golden neutral. So this is slightly peachy on me, but not enough to seem obvious at all. It's just like a hair peachier than I am. So there are 18 shades in this range, and something Fit Glow Beauty does really well, I think, especially for like a green, clean brand, wherever you stand on clean beauty, relative to the rest of clean beauty, I think they do incredible shade ranges. They go from very light to very deep with varying undertones, and they're very considerate about distributing those 18 shades very equitably across the color spectrum. So even though 18 shades itself isn't a lot, they use those 18 shades really well across the spectrum of light to deep. So moving on to concealer, I picked up the Dior Backstage Concealer, which I'm so excited about. If you're new here, the Dior Backstage Foundation is like my all-time favorite foundation. I just love the finish it gives to the skin. It's long wearing, yet super lightweight. It's fluid, it's buildable in coverage. It's just everything I look for in a foundation. So obviously I was really excited about the concealer and I had to grab it. I think it's only available right now on the Dior website. I hope it will become available at other retailers, but I'll keep you posted if I see it. My perfect shade, actually one of the best foundation matches for me of all the foundations I've ever tried, is the Dior Backstage 2 Warm Olive. They actually don't have the Warm Olive shade range in the Backstage Concealer. They have warm, neutral, and cool within each shade category. So the way the Dior shade range works is it goes from 0 to 9, which is light to deep. And then within each shade, there are different undertones, which are neutral, cool, or warm. So I went for 2W, so 2 Warm, which I thought would be the closest match to 2 Warm Olive. So it has the same packaging essentially as the foundation. I mean, the foundation is a squeezy tube, but otherwise the same. It has that soft matte silicone tube. It has the silver cap, and I just think it's really thoughtfully designed. It has the Dior embossing on the lid. And this is the best part about this concealer, is it is a brush applicator, which I think is pretty unique. And I definitely felt drawn to it. I was excited to try it. So this is described as a full coverage concealer for the face and body with a crease-proof, waterproof formula. Blends seamlessly with the skin for a radiant and natural finish. So let me show you how I apply it, and then I'll tell you what I think and whether it lives up to those claims. Because I have played with this a few times, I do agree that it is full coverage. I actually just need a dot there and a dot there, which is generally how I like to apply my concealer. I really don't like to over apply. I like the brush applicator a lot because it's quite small, so you can get into the corners of your eyes. I'm gonna actually go in with the Fit Glow brush that I use, that foundation brush. I actually really like this for concealer too. So I just applied a little bit there. This definitely has a true golden undertone. I thought because it was called 2 Warm, it would be really peachy, but it's actually more golden, I think, than it is peachy. I have swatched it against some of my other favorite concealers. I just did that this morning, so I'll include some photos of the comparisons. And I'm just going to add a bit more coverage and in the inner corner right there too. It's really buildable, and I feel like this is the kind of concealer I don't necessarily have to set. Gonna do the same thing on this side. Another thing I've noticed about this concealer is that it doesn't sink into my fine lines. I don't have super dark circles or deep set eyes. For me, if anything, I struggle with puffiness around the eyes. So, you know, I can't speak to mature wrinkles around the eyes or crow's feet too much. But in terms of just like fine lines and crinkling and crepiness that everyone has, I feel like this does a similar thing to the Armani Power Fabric Concealer in that it really smooths out the under eye. It doesn't sink into those cracks. It doesn't accentuate texture. It smooths out the appearance of the under eye. So that's the base done. I do think the finish of the concealer is, I wouldn't go as far to call it radiant. I think it's kind of like a luminous natural finish. And it does get more matte throughout the day. On me, it doesn't stay super radiant. And I am going to powder it because I'm gonna wear eye makeup, and if I don't set my under eye concealer, it will smudge because I have hooded eyes. That may not be the case for you, but I'm going to powder it. I just wanted to show you what it looks like before I do. I've also found it to be very long wearing. Like, it just stays. It's not quite self-setting. Like when I think of self-setting, I think more of matte concealers, and it's not that intense, but it is waterproof and it is long wearing. Like it lasts throughout the whole day until I take it off, especially when I set it. No new powders today, so I'm just going to use my Chantecaille Perfect Blur Finishing Powder. I actually really like this for under eyes because it's so lightweight and it does have that blurring quality that I find seems to smooth out the appearance of the skin, and it doesn't get too dry under the eyes. And I'm just going to powder down the T-zone as well because I'm getting shiny. I'm powdered. I primed my eyes so that we can get into this. This is the BYREDO Flora Kalahari eyeshadow palette. It's a limited edition palette and it's one of their large format eyeshadows. I have not tried BYREDO, their 5-pan eyeshadows. I've tried their lipsticks, I've tried their cheek products, but I have not tried their eyeshadow formula. To be honest, I haven't even purchased a large format eyeshadow palette, I think in over a year. There just hasn't been one that's completely grabbed me, but I saw this and it called my name and I had to try it. So this is what the palette looks like. It comes in this like mirrored silver palette with this rose embossing. It's very sculptural. It's beautiful. The only thing is the second you touch this palette, it smudges and then it's just gonna be like that forever. Like I'm not gonna Windex my eyeshadow palette. And the inside looks like this. There's also a big mirror here. This is so beautiful. It's a 15-pan eyeshadow palette. It's limited edition, and it's mostly warm tones and champagnes and roses with some pops of jewel tones, as well as a couple of deep shades. There are a few different textures in here. So there are 3 mattes, which are this matte, this matte, and this matte. And the rest are these like twinkly shades. There's some creamier metallics. I will include swatches below because I just swatched all of these in natural light this morning. There's really no other eyeshadow formula that immediately comes to mind that feels like this. They're thin and yet just 1 or 2 layers makes them opaque. They're not like Natasha Denona shadows, which have a lot of body and almost like a weight to them. You can like feel the creaminess of the pigment or the bindings. And they're not quite like Pat McGrath shadows either, many of which are like baked and are thin but pigmented. They're not really like any of those because I think these are all pressed powders or pressed pigments. My one concern with this palette was that there seem to be a lot of similar shades, right? There are a lot of champagnes like this, and that, and that, and there are a lot of rosy tones like these and these two. So that was the one thing holding me back. Now that I've tried them in person, I can say that the formulas and the textural differences make the shadows very different on the skin than they appear in the pan. You'll see in the video swatches and the swatch photos that I'm sharing that some of them have a duochrome quality, some of them are more of like a twinkly kind of shade, and some of them have different colored like micro glitters dispersed through them that do distinguish them from each other. Now, whether those are different enough to justify the cost for you is entirely a subjective question. This is a $96 palette, so it is not cheap. For me, I am really excited to play with this because the color story excites me, the formulas excite me, and I feel like even though the differences are sort of nuanced, these are all shades that I'm going to wear all the time. And ultimately, when you spend almost $100 on an eyeshadow palette, you want it to be the kind of thing that you're going to wear a lot. But I haven't used this on the eyes yet, so that's what we're going to do now. I'm just going to build a bit of structure on the eyes using this camel shade. This is a matte, and it does have a slight bit of kick up. So for me, this is the kind of shade that it's very utilitarian. I use it to kind of create some structure, sculpt a bit around the eyes. I like to bring it up, like blend it into my brow bone almost to create a bit of lift around the eyes. So these are applying really smoothly, very evenly. This matte shade is not like super intense, super opaque all at once. And it is a drier matte, which I actually think is a bit more beginner friendly than a lot of times those like creamier matte formulas, which I like, for example, in Natasha Denona, but they're not always the easiest to work with because they're so pigmented. This is very forgiving because you're able to build it up in sheer washes of color. Then I'm taking a smaller brush. This is the Esom W36 into this like taupe matte shade. And I'm just going to create a little bit of definition around the eye, the outer corner. I do think if I were to change anything about this palette from the get, I would include a couple more matte shades. I feel like there are enough matte shades, like you get this camel, this taupe, and then this deep burgundy. There are enough to ground the palette and create a bit of structure, but I think it would have been nice to see maybe even like a couple of jewel toned matte shades, like an emerald green matte would have been cool. Something like that just to allow you a few more options in the versatility and the kind of looks that you can create with this palette. So now I'm going to use my finger. I'm going to go into this bronze shade. This is one of those creamy metallics that's in this formula. It does have a slightly more like oily binding touch to it, but it's not thick. It's still very much a thin formula. I'm just gonna sweep that across the eye. These are blending out really beautifully with fingers. Then I'm going to take a smaller brush, this is the Refer 13, into the olive shade. This has a slightly black base. This is one of those olive shades that has a deep base but with a sort of burnished quality to the metallic. So even though the base is deep, it has this like burnished olive antique gold kind of shift to it. Then I'm going into this corner shade. This shade is sort of like a topper. It's not super opaque. It just has this kind of peachy pink shift to it. So I'm just gonna pop that in the inner corner. It has a really bright, fun pink shift to it. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, but it's not really pigmented in the base. It just kind of has this shifty quality. I'm using a small angled brush and I'm going to go into this teal. This is a really fun shade. This is like the one true, is it a duochrome? Yeah, I would say it's a duochrome. It's like how do you even describe this? It's like a charcoal base with a blue flip. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the base itself is almost like a granite, but it has that bright blue flippy quality. I'm not doing anything super dramatic with this, but I just want to line the base of my lashes with this shade. You could definitely use a wet brush with some spray or even just some water if you wanted more impact, but I'm just going for like a soft accent at the lash line. I did get a bit of fallout using this deep teal shade this way. I mean, I think if I had wet my brush first, that wouldn't have happened, but just letting you know, nothing major. And then I think I'm going to line the lower lashes with this bright pink shade. It's like a pink, let's see, do I have a clean finger? Yeah. So this is almost like a coral pink with a golden shift through it. Ooh, that has some impact. That's really fun. So I think I'm gonna stop there. I did want to use as many shadows as I could to show you what they look like on the eyes. I also have to correct myself. There are actually 4 mattes in this palette. There's the neutral ones that I mentioned, this one, and this one on the bottom, that burgundy. But there's also this bright orangey red, which is really fun and swatched very, very smoothly. I'm really excited to play with that on the eyes. This is definitely a slightly more dramatic look. For me in the day-to-day, I think this is a palette that's full of shadows that I could wear as one and done eyeshadows. Like I would be happy to wear any of the bronzes, the champagnes, the pinks, just as a single shade all over the eye, or I could create a more fun look. I also really like the layout of the palette. I feel like you can use any of these as quads. Like you can imagine this as a quad or as a 6-pan, 6-pan, 6-pan. It doesn't have the Natasha Denona, Pat McGrath impact, but it's almost a more artistic kind of palette in that it's more about washes of color, about color story and texture. There's something subtle but nuanced about it that feels a little bit more mature maybe and a little bit more refined. I do have a new mascara today. This is the Esam, it's just called the Mascara. And its claims are lash conditioning, long wearing, lightweight, beautiful lashes. I do like a lightweight formula, so I'm excited to try. This is what the tube looks like. It's silver and it has, interesting. It's a natural bristle brush, but it has a lot of separation between the bristles, which I can see myself liking. I did curl my lashes and I am going to use my Peri Para Ink Mascara Fixer. It's just something that I feel like I have to use to give any mascara a fighting chance. So I added the primer. Now I'm going to go in with the mascara. I really like the brush. It is kind of tapered at the end. And already I can tell the separating action is very good. Because there's a lot of space between those bristles, it prevents clumping, but it's still building volume. So that's one eye done. I think you can see there's a really big difference, at least for me, for my natural lashes, which are baby lashes. This is a water-resistant mascara. Maybe I'll leave a pinned comment and let you know what the removal process is like if I have a hard time getting it off with my regular cleansing balms or cleansing oils, just so I can give you that full review. It's rare that a mascara makes me go like, wow, I really like this upon first application. I mean, it does happen, but I really like this. So I've got both eyes done. Pretty big impact. I really, really like the way that applied, especially for the first go. I feel like it usually takes mascaras like 2 to 3 weeks to get to this point where I'm like, it's really good, but it's good from the outset. Because the eyes are kind of the focal point today, I want to keep everything else really fresh. So I want to try out a cream blush. There's this new brand that sent over a bunch of their products. It's called Gen C, Gensee. And they have lipsticks, they have, I think, a mascara, they have lip gloss, matte lipsticks, and they also sent over all of their cream blushes. So these are their Cream Sheen Lip Plus cheek colors. They come in this packaging. It's very cute. And they come in these little squeezy tubes. There are 3 shades in this line so far. There's apricot, plum, and apple. So there's like an apricot peach, a deeper plum, and apple is more of like a bright red. I think I'm gonna go for apricot today just to sort of lift the look. These are $18. The brand says, Clean Sheen Cheek and Lip is a buildable, blendable color for both cheeks and lips. It's easy to apply and can do everything from a sheer wash of color to a real pop of color. Either way, it gives a natural glowing flush to your complexion when used on cheeks and a light tint of color on the lips. Use on its own or with the gloss to amp it up. So the tube looks like this. I'm just gonna squeeze out a little bit on the back of my hand. This is very much giving me Glossier cloud paint vibes. We'll see if they perform the same way. I'm just going to take a brush and work off the back of my hand. Okay, right away I can tell you these are more of like a jelly, more of a gel than the cloud paints. The cloud paints are a little bit more liquidy, and these seem to have a little bit more like fluffiness to them. It is a really light wash of color. These actually remind me of the Chantecaille Lumiere, what is that called? Cheek something Lumiere, the cream gel blush. It's very much like that, and it also reminds me of the new Milk Bionic blushes that they just came out with. I grabbed a bit more because it is quite light. It is really a tint. Like it's not a full-on, it doesn't feel like a full-on liquid blush pigment kind of thing. It's more of that like no makeup, just juicy, dewy skin kind of vibe, but it doesn't feel sticky. That's really pretty, and it's very thin. Even though it's a gel, it seems to sheer out and it applies really evenly. I don't know if you're deeper than tan. I don't think this shade will show up on you because it's so lightly tinted. I think you might have to turn to the plum shade or the apple shade for richer skin tones than mine. But I do really like this shade on the cheeks, and the packaging is really cute. I really like this price point, this like mid-range price point that's emerging, especially among indie makeup brands and beauty brands. I feel like there's definitely a place in the beauty market for products in that price range. Chantecaille recently sent over their giraffe collection. It's their spring limited edition collection. This was the PR box. It's stunning. I did want to do a video for this collection with the eyeshadow palette, but I think I want to try out the lipsticks. So these are their lip cheeks, and there are 3 shades in this collection. They sent over 2 for me to try. They're really pretty. They look like this. They have the little giraffe embossing on the box themselves. And if you're not familiar with the Lip Chic formula, it's very balmy, kind of sheer, creamy, juicy lips. There are 2 shades. There's Jasmine, which is like a peachy pink, and then this is the shade Freesia, which looks a little bit more like a mauve-y shade. Let me swatch them for you. And here's a better look at the packaging. They're both metallic, different shades of pink. They have that giraffe embossing, just really beautiful. And then they have the Chantecaille logo right there. I swatched these in kind of a weird place. So this is Jasmine, which is that lighter peachy pink, and this is Freesia, which is a mauvier, kind of a more classic pink. I'm gonna go in with Jasmine. I'm not using a lip liner. I'm not really in a lip liner mood right now. So I'm just gonna go straight in with the Lip Chic. And this formula, because it's so balmy and it's not super opaque, it's very forgiving. It's the kind of lipstick you don't really need a lip liner with, honestly. Ooh, I love that. I love the Lip Chic formula. It's my favorite lip formula from Chantecaille. Even though I'm not wearing a lip liner, because it's so balmy and creamy and kind of shiny, I do feel like it already makes my lips appear fuller and plumper. And it's not super like high pigment, like it's not a commitment to wear this lipstick. The Lip Chic formula is what I would call a purse lipstick. It's the kind of thing you can throw in your bag and just reapply anytime. So this is the final look. Let me go through everything real quick. The Fit Glow Beauty Foundation I really, really like. I like how it almost feels like a skincare foundation. It makes my skin feel and look plumped up, but really smooth and filtered at the same time. Natural finish, great buildable coverage. The Dior concealer, also love. I think it's the kind of concealer I would always wear with at least a skin tint or something like that to blend into. But it is very blendable. It makes the under eyes appear very smooth and it's long wearing, and 2W was a great shade match for me. The BYREDO palette I am really excited to have. I am happy to see that there are such nuances and textural differences in the different shades. If warm tones are not your thing, I don't think this will be the palette for you, but if you like warm tones, but you also want the option to play with a little bit of color, it's a really interesting color story. And I think it gets my creative wheels turning, which I haven't felt with a large format eyeshadow palette, to be honest, in a while. And even though I think it will encourage me to play with colors, it's also great for everyday wear, one and done eyeshadows, looks you don't really have to think about. The Esom mascara really surprised me. I really like how separating it is, and if you have a preference like I do for fanned out lashes, I think you'll like this. It creates a very fluttery kind of lash look. The Gen C cream blush I really liked. I think it applied really evenly. It created a really nice, wash, like a watercolor flush kind of look on the cheeks. I think this will suit you more if you're a makeup minimalist, if you're someone that doesn't like to wear a lot of makeup or base products, and if you're curious to try cream blushes but you don't want to commit to something really pigmented, I think this will be for you. If you're someone that is really experienced with makeup and you're looking for a sophisticated formula with a bit more impact, I don't know if this will be the thing for you. It's more of your like minimalist, Glossier girl kind of vibe. And lastly, the Chantecaille Lip Chic in the shade Jasmine, which is in their limited edition Giraffe collection. I already knew I would love. That's why I went and got it, is because this is a formula I know and love and use all the time. It's in my purse all the time. This is a formula that's in my rotation all the time. And I think the shade curation for spring for this collection is really nice. Those, pretty flushes of pink, those kind of pastel colors, I think are just very flattering across a range of skin tones. I will leave a pinned comment with any updates on anything that I'm wearing, and I'm excited especially to keep playing with that BYREDO palette. So stay tuned. Definitely check out Instagram. That's where I post a lot of sort of daily makeup looks and things like that, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!